I'm Mark Page. My special guest today is Perry McCarthy, who is the original Stig from Top Gear and also a racing car driver to boot as well.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, tonight's event is an awards ceremony for the apprentices at TTE. So what's your view of apprenticeships and apprentices in Britain today, and what hope does it give them, Perry?
I'm a real big fan of apprenticeships, I really am. It's vocational, and people who have got a penchant for a particular subject and they have their eye on the future. It's a brilliant way to train and, make sure that it's pertinent and relevant rather than more esoteric stuff. So, yeah, I'm so pleased and proud of these people that are here, that they've come through and they're succeeding. They've got an eye on the future. And I always say this, to be a racing driver, you need to be passionate. But you don't have to be a racing driver to be passionate about wanting to be better and wanting to fulfill everything you've got inside yourself. And I think this is a great route for these guys, and that's one of the reasons I'm here. You
became famous as the original Stig. So how funny is it being famous when people don't actually see your face?
It's quite funny. My career coming through motor racing and get to Formula One was fraught with difficulty, tragedy and also comedy, and everybody said you've got to write a book, so I did. So I called it Flat Out Flat Broke, and we had this super launch party in London, and it was there at that party that Jeremy Clarkson said, hey listen, Top Gear's been off air for a long time, we're bringing it back and we've got this great idea and we want you to be this secret racing driver and be mean and moody and everything else. And I said great, and he said yeah, and remember the original Stig, me, was in black. He said, we're going to dress you in black boots, black gloves, black overalls, black crasher with black visor, and we're going to call you the Gimp. I said, no, you're not. Anyway, it went backward and forward, and that's how the Stig was born. They come up with the name, and I said, okay, I agree to that one. So we had no idea, of course, how big the show was going to end up being, and of course how popular the character of the Stig would end up becoming. And it's out of all the twists and turns of my career, ending up as becoming the Stig, and it just kind of fits right in there with the story, really.
What was it like working with Mr. Clarkson and the rest of the team? Who was in the series when you first started?
Well, when we first kicked off, it was Richard, it was Jeremy, but also Jason Dorr. But after the first series, Jason was replaced by James May. So, but I'd known all these guys before the Top Gear program anyway. It was good working with them. They're ultra professional, very bright, great writers and great TV presenters. None of them, as they will admit, are racing drivers, of course, good drivers. But yeah, they made the show what it was, or what it. Yeah, no, I should say what it was, not what it is.
Well, it's changed a bit now, of course, and the guys have moved on to a very different version of it, haven't they?
Yeah, they've created their own thing called the Grand Tour, isn't it? Yeah, on Amazon. I've actually not watched it yet, but I'll get round to it one day. So yeah, the big thing about the show was that they created this camaraderie. And it was good fun to tune in and just see them have a laugh and a joke, and also get to learn about cars and the adventures they were having. So it was well written. Andy Willman was the editor, and he's a genius TV producer. He really is. So they had some fantastic ingredients to make a brilliant show, and it showed. Not clear that's the case now.
Was it frustrating at all to be the Stig, to be a very famous character on the show almost, as well as a racing driver? You're a character, you're a racing driver, and yet people actually not know it was you?
The funny thing is, after the very first show, I got a whole bunch of texts from people in motor racing saying, morning Stiggy, because I always used to fold my arms when I was grumpy and stand, and I've got bandy legs, and I do tend to drive with the back of the car out. So a few people started working out immediately. Recognition-wise, I wasn't that worried about it. I was driving stuff. My job was to take it to the absolute limit. My job was to get recognised as a racing driver and in motor racing. And I was still racing then for Audi. So yeah, I had both sides of the coin. So it was quite good fun to just, not have to deal with anybody or anything. Just put the crash helmet on and drive road cars, some very fast road cars, but on Top Gear. So yeah, no sweat to me.
Tell me about your racing car driving, because to do what you did on Top Gear, you'd have to be a pretty good driver. So tell me about your background.
Well, it was my passion as a career. I kicked off as early as possible, but I had to go and work on oil rigs first to even get the money together, but then came straight into what we call Formula Ford, which is like the junior series if you're keen on being a Formula 1 driver, and I won the British Championship, and then came through, made it into Formula 3, then kept going into International Formula 3000, over to America, things went well there, and then finally made it into Formula 1.
So how did you get signed up into Formula 1, and who were you racing for?
Well, my performances in the States went terribly well, and I was really enjoying life out there. So I was at the front, and there was a peculiar set of circumstances where a driver was needed with a very, very small Formula 1 team called Andrea Moda, and I was so desperate to get into it, so I said, yeah, take me. I mean, I didn't know what I was letting myself in for with that team then, but I can say I got to Formula 1.
What do you think of Formula 1 nowadays?
I mean, I'm still enthralled by Formula 1. There are certain areas that I question. I understand people don't want to see drivers hurt, and none of us do, but I think it's becoming a trifle too sanitised, and that's what I fear. And they've got to do something about the front aerodynamics on the racing cars, because they're so reliant on a clean airflow to give them such phenomenal grip that when they're getting close to somebody else and fighting, the turbulence caused by the car ahead is making it impossible for them to stay near. So we don't really want close racing spoiled because of the huge technical brilliance of the engineers. You know, we need to just dumb it down a little bit to have really, really fast cars that can race, rather than incredibly fast cars that have a problem when they get near each other.
Who's your favourite driver currently, or drivers?
There's a bunch of. I mean, I think Lewis is absolutely fantastic. Lewis Hamilton, he really is. I mean, between the two of us, we've currently won 4 world championships. You know, I'm hoping we're going for a 5th this year.
Yeah.
No, it's all seriousness. Lewis, who has won the 4 world championships, is just brilliance personified, and he's surrounded by other wonderful drivers. Sebastian Vettel is a really great driver. Fernando Alonso is not in the car for this year. It'd be great to see him in a top-notch car. And we've got 2 very young, exciting talents with Daniel Ricciardo and also Max Verstappen, the Red Bull team. And they're just a few of the names. We've got huge reserves of talent in Formula 1 at the moment, so I love seeing these boys drive on the limit.
For me, one race that's always, since being a kid, has always been quite exotic is the Le Mans 24-hour race. And you did that. How was that?
Le Mans is ultra special. You're pretty much fitting in like 4, for one person, like 4 Grand Prix in one weekend. More than that. We're doing 8 hours, so yeah, it's probably about 6 Grand Prix, 1.5 hours. So we're each of us are doing about 8 hours in the car across that period, and it's brutal, absolutely brutal, and it's brutal for the team, and it's brutal for the cars. You've got to keep going all that time, and it's not just when you start the race and end it, because of course you're up like 7-8 hours before that race. So by the time you've gone to bed the following night, you've been up like 36-37 hours. The thing I love watching is the British spectators there, who arrive on the Wednesday, start drinking Wednesday afternoon, and by the time the end of the race on Sunday, they actually don't know what country they're in.
Perry, thanks very much for joining us at the TTE Awards 2018.
Thank you.